everybody, it's 5 o'clock on a Friday, and that's almost time to practice all weekend. But before we do, it's time for Cello Chat. And this month is being brought to us courtesy of MSR Classic CDs. Check them out online at msrcd.com. A wonderful collection of audio recordings there. And thank you for your support, MSR. And with me this week is Tanya Anisimova. I'm thrilled to have her with us. Tanya, how are you doing?
I'm doing just great. Thank you, Benjamin.
Tremendous. Excellent. Well, I'm very excited to visit with you about your playing and teaching and compositions. But just for people who maybe aren't as familiar with you as of yet, would you mind starting with your musical background and education and how you got where you are?
Well, Benjamin, I think I can consider myself to be exceptionally lucky as a student, because now come to think of it, my mentors are no longer with us. So I am not even able to recommend them to my students or to my peers. For example, one of my very talented students want to apply to BU. And I know that if George Nykruk was there, that would be the first person I would just really throw him into the arms of, but I'm no longer able to do so. And that really breaks my heart. But I was not a child prodigy. I was not a wunderkind. I was very talented. That was obvious from the age of 4. But the realities in the Soviet Union were such as that if you were born in a musical family, then almost without your consent, your parents would throw you into the world of music. And I have witnessed a number of tragedies of my peers who later made fantastic businessmen and entrepreneurs, but in their early years were molded as musicians, as professional musicians. And obviously they were very unhappy and never wanted to practice. And in my case, my parents were, my mother was a chemist and my father, he's still with us, is a very outstanding physicist. And they thought that I would become a scientist. That was the reality in the Soviet Union. Everything was kind of molded into you were in the box. You were born, but you're already in a box and already prepared for it. But my mother was also very talented as a musician. I think that if she did not pursue a career as a scientist, she would have become a very successful pianist. And she had a good voice as well. So we played, I still remember my best memories of my childhood is playing 4 hands piano with my mom and hearing her sing. I was fortunate to have a great first teacher. I don't know if you remember, I don't know what at some point I will have an interview with you and will ask you about I'm very curious about that, because I know that you studied with George, but I don't know who your first teachers were. But to my knowledge, the first teacher is extremely important. Who is your first teacher? That's very, very important. And I was really lucky from the start. She's still alive. She's now in Mexico City, but she was an amazing woman. And she was so musical. And I think her specialty was little kids. So I was in the right hands. And I was good enough to be admitted into Central Music School when I was only 9, and then Moscow Conservatory. And then I left USSR. And after already having some international competitions under my belt, I came to George Nykruk. And that was an amazing experience, as you know. Very, very memorable. Some of his phrases are still, they're imprinted in my mind. And after that, I went to Yale School of Music and pursued my doctoral with Aldo Parizo, who is no longer alive, but was a very interesting personality. My current teacher is my husband. He is 82 almost. And he's a master painter, artist painter. And you see some of his paintings probably behind me. He has a very unorthodox Annunciation here with Mary and an angel in the foreground. And if you see, I don't know how well it shows through Zoom, but there's a Joseph in the background wearing jeans and serving coffee to himself, totally clueless of what's going on in the other room. So it's kind of funny. If we get into that conversation later today, we will discuss this. But I think there are certain things that unite all realms of art. And those are harmony, balance, and sincerity, and some truthfulness to oneself. And I think if someone is a master in his realm, he is able to teach another master. Let's put it this way. There's always, provided that you're open, that your heart is open to continuous learning. And if you remember how Casals was, when he was asked, he was probably in his late 80s by that time, he was asked, Mr. Casals, maestro, you're probably at the peak of your glory and you possess all this knowledge of music. And you're just like, what are you talking about? I'm still practicing. I'm hoping that I will be better tomorrow. So I hope that we will pay attention to it. And I'm certainly trying to pay attention to it myself.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, so one of the main themes of the series is motivation and inspiration, of which everybody can always get more. So I'm thinking, you mentioned Casals. Is painting also one of your sources of inspiration for your playing and your composing?
It was, Benjamin, it was. And I'm very eager to start again, hopefully when the spring comes and this pandemic depression is, we're over it. I will be able to, because yes, it was for years. I have quite a few paintings. Quite a few paintings are actually, they're in various collections. They have been sold, and I don't have as many left. I want to come back to it. Yes, it's one of my inspirations. I definitely want to come back. That's how I came to meet my husband. I came to him as an art student. I wanted to learn art from him. So
excellent.
That's how it was almost 30 years ago now. Yeah.
Excellent. And let's see, on your main website, I think, among your statements about teaching is that the student should do what the teacher says. And I mean, I like the simplicity of this because, I mean, the way I read it, there's a degree to which, whether it's just our own habits or just prior, I mean, I guess often it's just our habits of the way that we played before. But when you go to study with somebody, you should be willing to abandon all of them and really, truly, earnestly try to do what this consistent approach that the teacher is describing that works so well for them. Do you find with your students that do they just by and large, do they do that, or do you have to find something that you do to get them in that sort of mindset of openness?
Well, I guess most of my students, they have come to me because they've seen my videos. Or some of the later ones have come to me because they have seen my students win competitions. So they send their students or their kids to me. But I think I guess I might call myself lucky. I don't have to try to convert them into my system or my beliefs, because they know that they came to me for certain things. And so I'm just here to give them the secrets So it's not that I have to tell them. Well, there is one student who is from a musical family, and his parents are professional musicians, and there are some discussions sometimes of how things need to be done. But I love those because they're violinists, and I'm very almost always I keep in mind a violin as in closest sister. So it's very interesting how I also catch some interesting ideas from them. Even about the arpeggios. For example, you're playing an arpeggio of F sharp minor, right? And you come up to the highest octave, A, seventh position, then C sharp, then F sharp. How would you finger these last three notes in the arpeggio? Which fingers would you choose?
Usually 1, 2, 3.
That's what I was thinking. That's the classical one. But then for some kids, it's very difficult to stretch between 2 and 3. So we devise a different method. For example, you can either do 1, 3 and then beautiful 3, 3 and come back, right? Or you can do as instead of doing the shift on between the F sharp and A, you can actually position your arpeggio as the second inversion. So say you do da da di da da di da da, and then if you switch right to the stand, then you do. So there are many different. As long as you're prepared to open your mind, this is unbelievable how you can run back and forth. And I guess maybe that's what infuses this air of trust in our. I never say I know. That's it. That's the way I say. On one hand, yes, I give them specific instructions because maybe in 99% of the time I know exactly how it will be the best. But there is this 1, 2, sometimes 3% that I actually can. There's a room for me, right, to get something else from them. So there's always a sense of co-creating, and I think that that's also more exciting for a teacher.
Right. Well,
yeah.
I was going to say along those lines, your compositions, of which there's easily a dozen of them, and they're very creative and they're very fun, and I'm very curious about them. I mean, they vary from each other quite a bit. I mean, you have Icelandic influences in the one. I know they're rather than composers with kind of one uniform style. But one of the things that I think about when I hear them is this sounds to me like somebody who improvises quite a bit. So do you improvise, and do you encourage your students to do so as well?
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. And I used to think that they need to be at a certain level to start doing it. No longer. You can start with people who are still at their beginner in their beginner stage, because it makes them listen. We do that all the time. And I think it's just so great to do it. Teaches them to hear, teaches them not to be afraid, because the first thing that I tell them, in improvisation, there's no mistakes. I'm holding a drone, you're playing a note that you think doesn't fit. Before moving on to the next one, why not just listen to it and see, maybe you can start enjoying it, and then choose another note that will be in organic relationship to the one that you're playing now. So I think that they are enjoying it very much. Yes, it does help.
Good. I like that. That and that explanation, for example, even meshed with your priorities that you mentioned early on of the harmony and balance. One of the things I think about with a lot of youngsters when we try to encourage them, for example, to embrace improvisation, is there's still sometimes, with at least a certain percentage of them, in my experience, this fear factor that's hard to get over, at least until X number of attempts of improvising. And I'm thinking now about those videos that you mentioned, which many of them probably have heard your compositions and seen your videos, but the willingness in all of your videos to just really play the snot out of the cello. I mean, you just go to however much you need to get the depths, that you're after. And I hear that in the compositions too. And sometimes when students are first trying improvisation, they're still, like you said initially, kind of within, it's like they see themselves within a box, and they don't really know how to go about starting to take chances. So, you're talking about staying on the note until another note that organically makes sense to move to from there. And don't let me misquote you. That's kind of...
No, that's fine. That's fine. We live in a world of past Dalia Piccola, past Schenek, past Elliott Carter, past when we listen to the modern compositions, we are fine with that. I work with modern composers all the time. I have a plenty of pieces, which are amazing pieces. I'm actually thinking that maybe I should record the CD with just the gifts to me, because they certainly deserve, and I would like to come back to them and play them better, hopefully. That it's fine to have all of those clashes of dissonances, right? Minor seconds and major sevenths and or microton. That's fine. Why not do it in the improvisation? I also noticed some people who when they start to improvise, for some reason they immediately withdraw an emotional content. They somehow just, you can see them noodling and thinking on a cello, but the sound is not interesting and deprived of any color. And they just go on and mechanically try to blurb up some notes, but that's not improvisation. That's why when I play a concert, and sometimes the whole second half of my concert is dedicated to an improvisation, I ask my audience to help me. And they give me fantastic themes. They give me a Last Supper of Leonardo, or some Ninth Symphony of Beethoven. And I think, okay, what should I do? Definitely not Schiller, something else. And you think that it's easier to have something, to have some boundaries, right? But also it is easier because you emotionally activated when you start that improvisation. When you're just thinking A minor, that may not move you enough, right? And you need everything you play when you improvise has to be about something that you feel. Basically everything you play, even the scales. Lately, I've been thinking, even this thumb position that they learn now, if I ask them to make it beautiful and just infuse the admire these notes. Yes, they feel uncomfortable. Yes, thumb hurts. Yes, new callus is born and it's hurtful and everything. But try to, apart from thinking about this, try to make it sound beautiful. Try to adore even that moment when you're suffering, and then you'll become much more successful immediately. That's at least that's what I found from my experience teaching.
Well, now I'm a little bit curious. You clearly, from your arrangements, for example, and performances of not only the Bach suites for cello, but also for violin, you clearly are a fan of Bach. What are your other influences? Bach obviously was quite an improviser as well, but yes, for some people, it would be quite a leap to go from Bach to, for example, microtonal or some of the modern sounds. What were some of your influences that led to your both compositional and playing style?
Bach made me compose.
Okay.
In Bach, there's so many keys in Bach that are the keys that open unknown doors in you. It's play Bach diligently, play Bach for a long time, and new facets of yourself will be unveiled. That's Bach. My very, very simple answer to my starting to compose was Bach. And I still, even now with the pandemic and the moods changing and tours canceled and concerts delayed and everything, it's a medicine. It's really a medicine. I can see. I was thinking of it as a nice fairy tale, nice myth to cherish about Pablo Casals' morning, when he was all crooked up, and then he would come to the piano first to play one of the well-tempered clavier's movements, and then how he would almost like there would be an elixir of youth injected in him as he was playing it. And that's true. That's not a fairy tale. It's not a legend. It's not a legend. It's really, there is something there. I don't know. Maybe it's us thinking that way and self-convincing, and it's like auto-training. That Bach will do it to you, and it does. We could be biased, yes, but it works. It works. Yes, my composition definitely. My starting to compose was quite. It was a necessity. It was my last year at Yale, and we were invited. Me and my husband were invited to the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, and I had to be a composer in order to be a fellow there. So I said that I compose, although I only improvised at the time. I never written anything down. And then I remember writing down my song on Mount San Angelo while I'm there. That was my first. And immediately, somehow it clicked, and it just went from there.
Excellent. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have, I think, 3 more questions. One of them, you sound like, I'm just betting that you're full of stories in terms of the, well, I mean, being raised in Russia with 2 scientist parents, for example, and ending up at Moscow Conservatory, or the competitions, quartet or solo competitions, or we all have stories with studies with Nykrug or Pariseau. Can you select a couple of your just kind of favorite anecdotes and share them with our audience?
Well, I remember, it's not an anecdote, it's just a memory of George Nykrug, when I was reluctant to use his bow grip, and I was to do an audition for Norfolk Chamber Music Festival for Aldo, and I said, what do I do? Because I still need to experiment and try, and then at the same time, what do I do? And he said, Tanya, don't you worry. Just why are you worrying so much? Just go and play. You will still do your best. Mm-hmm. He said that no matter what happens, what you hold like, who cares? He said, you will still do your best. Don't close it in worrying. Just come there and be who you are, and you will still do your best. And that somehow it just kind of stripped me all of my worries and nervousness, and about, yes, well, don't forget who you are after all. Just who cares how it's there, where it's there. It's you. You come to show who you are, and people will appreciate you or not. It's another story. So that was very important to me with George. And I can't really think of any memorable stories. But I think that my transcribing the chaconne actually originated in us Yale cellos playing the chaconne as a cello ensemble. I think I enjoyed hearing all of those different voices done at the same time. And I really dreamed about doing this piece by myself. So I would say that Aldo Varizo's decision to make us play that piece was instrumental. What was great is were the seminars that Aldo held every Tuesday at the Yale School of Music, because he was silent most of the time. He was silent, it was just us. He was there in the corner, and that was actually the most nerve-wracking experience, because to play in front of each other when the whole class is present is not easy. And most of the time, those works were they were still in progress or just sort of almost ready. And it was interesting. And I remember how one of the students played, and I don't remember so much the moments when I played, because I guess maybe it was as it was. But I remember when I was suddenly signaled out to comment. And that was, I think it was very difficult. Now, come to think of it, I was in the country for only 2 or maybe 3 years. And my first foreign language was French. Je parlais français. When I came to this country, I tried to communicate in French, and people were, what? So I guess maybe my language wasn't good either. But I came up with something. I guess I blurred something up, but that was very nerve-wracking.
All right. Okay, another question I have. I'm very curious. On your website, you also list as, I understand as an activity outside of cello playing, I understand the visual arts, but mushroom gathering.
Where did you find that?
No, I try to do my research on the interviewees. I can't quite remember.
You're good. You're very good.
What is it? Just kind of like Brahms with his strolls in nature and the various other composers?
Right. And some of those psychedelic mushrooms that really bring you some amazing ideas. Well, mushroom gathering started very early. You have to be Russian to understand. It wasn't just because in the stores of the Soviet Union, in the grocery stores, basically the shelves were empty. And you would have to come up with some interesting and tasty recipes by yourself. So all of this berry gathering, blueberry, we have a blackberry, that what you call, it's it's a little different than in this country. And raspberry, when the grown-up bear 100 yards from me was doing the same, and I was going away. But mushroom gathering, I'm quite a connoisseur. So if you ever need, even though some of the mushrooms on this continent don't look the same, even though they're the same kind, but because of the different contents in the soil, they change color and sometimes them in shape, but I still can recognize them. And yes, I can call myself a connoisseur of mushrooms.
Excellent. Yeah. All right. Mm-hmm. And then upcoming projects. I know you had a performance that was, like you mentioned, postponed recently, but I also know you have a lot of irons in the fire. What are some of them coming up this spring?
Okay, I will probably go to Yogaville, and that's a decision that I have made, but waited until they would open. I love performing in Yogaville, and I'll probably do it as soon as the weather, probably in March. But most of the projects other than that project are to record. I want to come back to the studio and record again, come back to Bach. I want to record both suites and partitas again, make a next installment. And this coming concert, because the concert was delayed, but it wasn't canceled. It's coming up on Sunday. We will play Brahms's E minor sonata. We will play Adagio and Allegro by Schumann and Fantasy Stücke and 2 Dvorak pieces. But we will also play, I don't think other cellists do it, and I think it organically leads itself to the cello, is the Scherzo, Sonata and Satz by Brahms from FAE Sonata. It's just beautiful on a cello in the original key, and we will end the concert with it. So I hope you can tune in and enjoy it.
Terrific. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure for me. I know it will be for the students watching currently and watching in the future. Lots to unpack for motivation and inspiration, and just generally thinking about, like what you say, harmony and balance, and why we're in this wonderful art.
My pleasure, Benjamin.
All right. Well, thanks, and thanks everybody. We'll see you next week. Take care.